For 3 years, nobody knew I owned Titan Building Group. Not my friends, not my crew, nobody. I kept the same truck, same jacket, same life. Then my best friend got hired there. And at the barbecue, he said something he really shouldn't have. I let my best friend humiliate me in front of 40 people at a 4th of July barbecue. He stood there with a beer in his hand, grinning like he'd just won the lottery, and told everyone I'd spend my whole life digging ditches. He didn't know I owned the company that had just hired him. He didn't know I'd be sitting at the head of the table Monday morning, and he sure as hell didn't know that by the end of summer, he'd be answering to every blue-collar worker he ever looked down on. My name is Marcus Coleman. This is what happened. Jalen Price and I grew up on the east side of Indianapolis. Same middle school, same hallways at Arsenal Technical High School. We shot hoops at the same courts, ate at the same tables, got into the same stupid trouble on Friday nights. But our houses were different. His dad managed a car dealership on East Washington Street. Nice house, 2-car garage, family vacations to Myrtle Beach every summer. My mom worked 2 jobs, nights at Community Hospital East and weekends cleaning offices downtown. She never complained. I never forgot. After graduation, Jalen went to IUPUI. Business degree, 4 years, the whole thing. I went straight to a construction crew in Lawrence. Showed up the first morning at 6:15, 17 years old, 155 pounds, and the foreman handed me a shovel. I learned framing that first year, concrete the second. By 23, I was running small residential jobs on my own. By 26, I was a licensed foreman, pulling crews across the north side. Jalen bounced between sales gigs, car lots, office furniture, some staffing agency in Castleton that folded after 8 months. But every time we got together, he had the same line, same grin. At least I use my brain for a living, brother. He'd say it at Pacers watch parties. He'd say it at cookouts in Garfield Park. He said it on Mass Ave after 3 bourbons, like it was the funniest thing anyone ever came up with. I let it go every single time. 3 years ago, my accountant, Ray Okafor, called me on a Tuesday afternoon. He said there was a mid-sized commercial contractor called Titan Building Group operating across Marion County. Good crews, solid client list, but the owner was bleeding money through bad management and worse accounting. Ray said the asking price was low enough to be dangerous. I drove to his office that night and we went through the books until midnight. I used my savings, a small SBA loan, and an LLC called Ironside Holdings to buy Titan outright. My attorney, Linda Chow, structured everything so my name appeared on 0 letterheads, 0 websites, 0 documents that anyone outside the deal would ever see. I brought in Derek Simmons as my business partner. Derek was a quiet operations guy I'd met on a Carmel office building 2 years earlier. Smart, steady, no ego. He became the face of the corporate side, signed the contracts, took the meetings, shook the hands. I kept everything else the same. Same Carhartt jackets with concrete dust on the cuffs. Same used 2019 F-150 with mud caked on the rocker panels. Same apartment in Broad Ripple. Same stool at 20 Tap on Thursday nights. Nobody in my circle had any idea. Not Travis Boone, my buddy who pulled wire on half the job sites in Hamilton County. Not Andre Mitchell, who cut my hair every 2 weeks at his shop on College Avenue. Not Keisha Wallace, who worked the ER at Eskenazi and could read people better than anyone I knew. Keisha actually pulled me aside one night. This was late May, a happy hour at Broad Ripple Tavern. She waited until Jalen went to the bar and then leaned over and said, "You know he doesn't respect you, right?" I shrugged, told her he'd been like that since 10th grade. She shook her head and said, "That doesn't make it okay, Marcus." I just finished my beer. Around that same time, Jalen got let go from a project coordination role at a development firm in Fishers. He was interviewing everywhere. And one morning, Derek forwarded me a resume that had come through Titan's general inbox. Jalen Price, project manager. I read it twice, set the phone down, and called Derek back. I told him if Jalen was qualified, hire him through the normal process. Don't mention my name. Don't change anything. Derek paused for a long time and then just said, "You sure?" I said I was sure. 2 weeks later, Jalen called me, shouting into the phone like he'd just hit the Powerball. He said he'd landed the biggest contract of his career, $712,000. Project manager at Titan Building Group. He said it was the break he'd been waiting for his whole life, and he wanted to celebrate at the 4th of July barbecue, at my place, in front of everyone. I said, sure, come on over. The barbecue was at Travis Boone's rented house on Guilford Avenue in Broad Ripple. Travis had the smoker going since 6 in the morning. Brisket, ribs, links, the whole spread. About 40 people showed up. Friends, coworkers, neighbors, a few cousins somebody brought along. Kids were running through sprinklers in the front yard. Someone had a Bluetooth speaker on the porch blasting Kendrick, loud enough to hear from the sidewalk. I got there around 4 with a case of Sun King Sunlight Cream Ale and a 20-pound bag of ice. Faded Carhartt tee, cargo shorts, work boots I've been wearing all week. Travis met me at the gate and handed me a plate before I even set the beer down. I found a long chair by the fire pit and stayed there most of the night. Talked to Andre about his shop expansion. Talked to Keisha about a double shift she'd pulled at Eskenazi the night before. Normal 4th of July. Jalen showed up around 4:30. Leased BMW 3 Series. Linen shirt, designer sunglasses pushed up on his head. He came through the gate like he was walking into a club. Dapped up everybody in the yard. Made sure the whole deck heard him laugh. I watched him work the crowd the way he always did. Jalen had a gift for making every room feel like it revolved around him. Most of the time, I didn't mind. That night, I should have seen it coming. Around 8, the fireworks started popping off over the White River. You could see them just above the tree line from Travis's backyard. People were standing along the fence watching. That's when Jalen stepped up onto the deck and raised his beer. Yo, everybody, hold up. I gotta say something. The music got turned down. People turned around. Jalen was grinning so wide, it looked like his face might split. Your boy just locked in a $700K deal with Titan Building Group. Project manager. Corner office. The real thing. People clapped. Travis yelled, "Let's go!" from the grill. A few guys near the cooler raised their cans. Jalen soaked it in, nodded like a man accepting an award. Then he looked directly at me. I was still sitting in that lawn chair by the fire pit with half a beer in my hand. Marcus, brother, I'm serious. He pointed at me. 40 people watching. Maybe one day you'll stop digging ditches and sit at a real desk. I'll put in a word for you. Some people laughed. Not a lot. Enough. I heard the uncomfortable silence underneath it. Saw a few faces look away. Keisha was standing next to Andre by the fence. I didn't hear what she said, but I saw her mouth move, and I saw Andre shake his head slow. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, looked at Jalen and said, "Congratulations, Jay. Seriously, you earned it." He laughed and clapped me on the shoulder and moved on to the next conversation like nothing happened, like he hadn't just put me on display in front of every person I cared about. I finished my beer, helped Travis scrape down the grill grates, talked about the Pacers' off-season for 20 minutes. Normal stuff. Nobody brought up what Jalen said. Nobody had to. I left around 10. Drove south on Meridian Street with the windows down. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. It wasn't the words. I'd heard worse from Jalen 100 times. It was that he said it in front of Keisha, in front of Andre, in front of Travis and his wife, and people I'd known for 20 years. It was the pity in his voice, the performance of it, like he genuinely believed he was above me and wanted everyone else to see it too. I got back to my apartment and sat on the couch for about 10 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and called Derek. "Jalen Price starts onboarding Monday," I said. Derek was quiet for a second. "Yeah, 9 a.m. at the East 46th Street office. Danielle's got his packet ready. I want to be in the room." Another pause. Longer this time. "You sure you want to do this?" "I'm not going to fire him," I said. "I'm going to teach him something." Derek didn't argue. He never did when my voice got that flat. He rearranged the Monday onboarding schedule, booked the large conference room, and made sure Danielle Webb in HR had the full ownership disclosure packet printed and ready. 1 page. Ironside Holdings, LLC. Sole member and beneficial owner, Marcus D. Coleman. Monday morning at 9 a.m., Jalen Price walked into that conference room with a new briefcase and a fresh haircut. He was wearing a sport coat, smiling at Danielle, shaking hands like he owned the place. He didn't see me at first. I was sitting at the far end of the table with a cup of coffee and the same Carhartt jacket I'd worn to the barbecue. Then Danielle slid a single sheet of paper across the table, and his whole face changed. Jalen read that piece of paper twice. I watched his eyes move across the lines. Ironside Holdings, LLC. Sole member and beneficial owner, Marcus D. Coleman. He looked up at me, then back down at the paper, then back at me. His mouth opened, but nothing came out for about 5 seconds. Danielle kept her face professional. She'd done this disclosure with every new hire for 6 years. To her, it was paperwork. To Jalen, it was a detonation. Derek walked him through the org chart next. Calm, methodical, the way Derek does everything. He explained that Ironside Holdings was the parent entity, that Marcus Coleman wasn't just involved. I was the sole decision maker. Every project approval, every hire, every budget allocation ran through me. Jalen sat there with his new briefcase on the table and his sport coat buttoned and didn't say a word. I kept my voice even, told him his contract was legitimate. He'd been hired on merit. Derek and the senior estimator vetted his resume through the normal process. Nothing changed about the salary or scope. $712,000 over 18 months. Same deal. But the site assignment was mine to make. I pulled up the project board on the wall screen. Jalen's first assignment was the Fountain Square mixed-use renovation on Shelby Street. Titan's most demanding active site. Tight timeline, a difficult general contractor relationship, and a crew of veteran tradesmen who'd been pouring foundations and framing walls since before Jalen got his business degree. The foreman was Carlos Vega, 52 years old, concrete specialist, 30 years in the trades. Carlos ran the tightest crew in the company and had zero patience for people who didn't respect the work. Jalen nodded through all of it like a man in a trance. The meeting ended. Danielle collected the signed forms. Derek shook Jalen's hand and left. I stayed at the table, finishing my coffee. Jalen caught me in the parking lot. He was standing next to my F-150, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You set me up," he said. "You've been hiding this whole time, lying to everybody, and now you're power tripping." I unlocked my truck. "I didn't trick anyone, Jay. You just assumed." "You let me say that at the barbecue. You sat there and let me say it." "I did." I opened the door. "See you on site." That night, Jalen called Keisha. I heard about it later from Andre, who heard it from Keisha directly. Jalen tried to spin the whole thing. Said I'd been lying to everyone for 3 years. Said I was using the company to humiliate him. Keisha shut it down in about 30 seconds. She told him I didn't lie, that he never asked, that he was too busy feeling sorry for me to notice anything real about my life. The first 2 weeks on the Fountain Square site went about how I expected. Jalen tried to manage from the trailer, sent emails to the crew instead of walking the site, showed up the first morning in dress shoes. Carlos called me at lunch on day 3 and said Jalen had referred to the framing crew as the labor guys in a morning meeting. 8 men who'd been building structures since Jalen was filling out college applications. The crew was not impressed. After the second week, Jalen went to Derek privately, asked to be reassigned to something more strategic. His word, more strategic, meaning less dirt, less sun, less time around men with calloused hands. Derek told him site assignments came from me. Jalen didn't call me to ask. He already knew what I'd say. I told Carlos to treat Jalen like any other new project manager. No special favors. No grudges either. If Jalen asked a dumb question, answer it honestly. If he disrespected the crew, document it and send it to Danielle. I wasn't trying to destroy him. I was trying to show him something he'd spent his whole life refusing to see. Around mid-August, I asked Andre Mitchell to stop by the Fountain Square site. Told him to use the pretense of bidding a small tile job for his barbershop renovation. Andre walked the site for about an hour. He found Jalen in the trailer, sweating through a polo shirt, blueprints spread across a folding table, a yellow highlighter in his hand. Andre didn't say anything to him beyond hello, but he called me that evening from his shop. He's humbled, Andre said. He's not there yet, but he's humbled. The next week, Jalen filed an informal complaint with Danielle, suggested the site assignment constituted a hostile work environment. Danielle reviewed the facts. The assignment was within the scope of his contract. The pay matched. Every other project manager at Titan had rotated through difficult sites. There was nothing actionable. She told me privately in her office on East 46th Street. Door closed, voice low. He's testing you. Don't bend. I didn't bend. By the end of August, Jalen had lost 12 pounds, broken 2 pairs of dress shoes, and learned how to read a concrete pour schedule. Carlos told me Jalen had stopped sending emails from the trailer and started walking the site by 7 every morning. He still wasn't great, but he was present. That was something. But the real moment, the one that changed everything between us, that hadn't happened yet. Early September, the Fountain Square project hit a wall. Marion County Permit Office sent an inspector for the critical concrete phase review. If the cure schedule was off by even a day, the whole phase would get red tagged, and Titan would eat a $94,000 penalty. Carlos's crew had done everything right. Every pour on time, every batch documented, every form stripped on schedule. But the county inspector was Phil Dreyer, notorious hard case, 23 years in the permit office, and a reputation for finding problems where none existed. Dreyer flagged a paperwork discrepancy in the pour logs, a clerical error, one date transposed on a batch ticket entry, not a structural issue, not even close. But Dreyer wouldn't budge, said he'd red tag the entire phase unless the PM on record resolved it on site. That was Jalen. Carlos called me at 6 in the morning. I drove to Fountain Square and parked in the gravel lot on Shelby Street. I didn't go inside. I stood by my truck with a cup of gas station coffee and watched through the chain link fence. Jalen was already out there. Work boots now. Actual timberlands. Mud caked up past the soles. He had the pour logs in one hand and a yellow highlighter in the other. I watched him walk Dreyer through every single entry, page by page. He cross-referenced the batch tickets from the concrete supplier, pulled up the delivery timestamps on his phone, showed Dreyer the discrepancy was a clerical transposition, not a sequencing error. Dreyer listened with his arms crossed and his clipboard against his chest. After about 40 minutes, Dreyer agreed to a conditional pass, pending a corrected filing by end of day. He signed the form and left without shaking anyone's hand. Jalen saw me by the truck as he walked back across the lot. He looked exhausted. Dust on his shirt, sweat on his forehead, highlighter still in his hand. "You were just going to stand there?" he said. "You had it handled." He stopped about 5 feet from me, looked at the ground for a long time. Then he said, "I've been a real piece of work, haven't I?" "Yeah," I said, "you have." I don't even know why I was like that. His voice got quieter. "I think I needed you to be less than me, so I could feel like I was enough." "I know. That's why I didn't fire you." His eyes got wet. He blinked it away fast, but I saw it. "I'm sorry, Marcus. Not just for the barbecue. For all of it. Years of it." "I hear ya. Now go file that correction before Dreyer changes his mind." He almost laughed. Then he turned around and walked back to the trailer. Later that month, Andre hosted a small cookout behind his barbershop on College Avenue. Maybe 15 people. Burgers on a little Weber grill, folding chairs in the alley. Keisha brought it up directly. She looked right at Jalen and said the barbecue speech was one of the most disrespectful things she'd ever witnessed. Travis agreed. Andre nodded slow. Jalen took it, didn't deflect, didn't crack a joke. He said, "I know. I'm working on it." The group didn't fully trust him yet, but they saw the shift. Jalen stopped leasing the BMW, bought a used Honda Accord, stopped performing at dinners, stopped picking up tabs with announcements. At Titan, his quarterly review came back solid. Not outstanding, solid. Carlos wrote in his foreman's evaluation 4 words that meant more than any bonus. PM Price has improved. Communicates with the crew. Still learning, but shows up. In October, Jalen invited me to 20 Tap, just the two of us. It was awkward for the first beer. He asked me why I never told him about Titan. I said, "Would it have changed how you treated me?" He didn't answer right away, stared at his glass. Then he said, "Probably not, and that's the problem." We didn't hug it out, didn't call each other brother, but we sat there for 2 hours and talked about the Colts, about Carlos's terrible jokes on the job site, about the Fountain Square timeline. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in 15 years. By December, I started letting my name show up on things. Derek had been pushing me for months. "You built this. You should own it publicly." I let them list me as managing director on Titan's updated website. Didn't make a speech about it, just let it exist. Jalen finished his first full project cycle at Fountain Square. On time, under budget by $31,000. Carlos took the crew out for steaks at St. Elmo downtown. Jalen paid. Nobody made a joke about it. I started mentoring 2 younger guys from the east side that winter. Both in the trades. Both smart enough to own something someday. I told them what Ray Okafor told me years ago. The building is the business. Learn the building first. People ask me if I regret not saying something at that barbecue. Honestly, no. If I'd embarrassed Jalen that night, it would have been about my ego. What I did instead, putting him on that site, making him answer to the work, that was about his growth. And mine. I don't need anyone to know I own the table. I just need to know I built it. And if you're out there swinging a hammer right now, trust me, you're building more than you think.